After 6.5 years in power, Mikhail Gorbachev confirmed his
Мы
resignation on
наследники великой
television.
цивилизации. И сейчас от всех и зависит, чтобы она возродилась к новой, современной, отказались от вмешательства в чужие дела и на доверие. Мы стали одним из главных оплотов по переустройству современной цивилизации на мирных демократических началах.
December 1991. In the dead of winter, three men met in a forest on the border of Belarus and Poland. These three men were pretty high-ranking: the president of Ukraine, the president of Belarus, and the president of Russia, Boris Yeltsin. And at the stroke of a pen, these three men decided to part ways, to disband the Soviet Union. And in an instance, the Soviet Union was no more, and Ukraine, Belarus, and Russia became their own independent countries. Each of these three men had their own reasoning for parting ways, but for the president of Russia, Yeltsin, his reasoning was clear. See, Yeltsin was the president of Russia proper, not the Soviet Union. That honor went to Mikhail Gorbachev, the leader of the Soviet Union. Russia was the biggest entity within the Soviet Union, but Yeltsin was still number 2 to Gorbachev. That meant if Yeltsin got rid of the Soviet Union, Gorbachev would be no more, and Yeltsin would be number 1. So that's what he did. The Cold War ended, the constant threat of nuclear war was over, and the military alliance of Soviet countries called the Warsaw Pact was no more. And now America was faced with a decision. What do we do with this new country called Russia? Do we still treat them like the enemy? Do we punish them like we did with Germany after World War II? Or do we wipe the slate clean and start anew? Yeltsin wanted the latter. He wanted to make amends with the Americans. So he went to America to offer peace.
Yeltsin came to the United States and he addressed a joint session of Congress. And he said, the people of Russia are offering their hand to the people of the United States in friendship to build a better world, a world without war, a world without peace. And this was exactly what the vast majority of Russians wanted. And I would even say that today, the vast majority of Russians would like to have, if not a friendship with the United States, at least a partnership. There's no doubt to my mind that that's the case.
So the US could have approached Russia one of two ways.
The United States could have picked two ways of treating Russia. One was to say, let's treat Russia like we did our enemies after World War II. Germany, Italy, and then some of the countries that were occupied, such as France, or were not occupied, such as UK, but were really badly hurt. Let's find a way to see to it that in those countries, Nazis, fascists do not come back, and communists do not come to power. And may I remind you that in those days, the Communist Party of France and the Communist Party of Italy were very, very powerful. And that plan turned out, was called later the Marshall Plan, which was basically a financial idea to spend a lot of money, but in a very precise way, to develop certain things and not to allow others to develop. Now, that could be the policy to adopt vis-a-vis Russia. See to it that democracy begins to develop in that country. And let me say, just for the record, Russia never, in its entire 1,000 years, never had democracy. Completely absent. So it wasn't like something that once upon a time Russians had and then they lost, but they knew what it was. They didn't know what it was. So let's spend money on getting democracy moving in Russia and seeing to it that the communists do not get back. And that could have been one approach. The other approach was to say, for 40 years, you held a nuclear bomb over our heads. You lost the Cold War, and you're going to pay for it. You're going to be punished for what you did. And there were people who supported one view and people who supported the other in this country.
Can you guess which route America decided to take? Instead of trying to make things work, America decided it would never let another country challenge it ever again. American supremacy was the only goal.
Basically, that view was the one that was accepted. It was the one that was accepted. And the attitude towards Russia was pretty much, you're no longer a superpower. You are a second-rate country. Just keep quiet, please.
And this decision, this attitude change, this fork in the road was what would eventually lead to the crisis in Ukraine today.